Hello everyone and welcome. I hope everybody had a Merry Christmas and that we all have a better New Year. I've had several requests to do a roll crimper for the 410 shotgun shell, so that's what I'm going to do today. Now there are a lot of videos out there on making a roll crimper, not just for the 410 shotgun shell, but for the 12 gauge, 20, so forth and so on. And they all involve, lathes, machining this, miking that, specialty tool for this. I'm not going to do any of that. The roll crimper that I'm going to make today is going to be one that anybody could make with just some simple hand tools. So let's go in the shop and get started. For the body of my roll crimper, I'm going to use a 1 1/4 inch dowel. And this was actually left over from when we put in one of those clothing systems in my fiance's closet. And this was used, to hang clothes on. And I'm going to cut about 1.5 inches off of this. I got the piece cut for my body, and I got my center lines drawn. With this being a 1 1/4 inch piece, they should be 5/8 of an inch to the center. With my center lines done, I'm now going to take a 15-30 seconds drill bit, and I'm going to drill 5/8 of an inch deep. A 15-30 seconds drill bit was the closest I could find to the dimension of a 410 shot shell. Now that I've got that done, I need to work on what I'm going to use as my mandrel. For my mandrel, I'm going to use this large nail, and this is bigger than a 16 penny nail, so I guess this would be like a 20 penny nail. But just kind of looking at it, it looks like it's going to fit right inside the roll crimp on a shotgun shell that is factory roll crimped. So here's the spike after I cut it down and polished it, and it looks like it's going to fit perfectly inside of that roll crimp on a factory roll crimp shotgun shell. And I cut it off at 2.5 inches long. All right, so I got my hole drilled for my mandrel. It's going to fit in kind of like that. It's kind of a snug fit, which is what I want. Kind of see it coming through right there. So here's a look inside of the basic workings of my roll crimper. I've got my mandrel sticking through into the cavity itself about 1/4 inch. And before I go any further, I'm going to go ahead and start shaping this and polishing it up a little bit, and then get into the finer details of affixing this mandrel to the body itself. To shape this, I'm just going to use some hand tools. I've got my basic shape done. Now I'm going to chuck it up in my drill and kind of refine the shape a little bit. And to do that, I've got just a rod that has some threads and a nut on the end of it. And I'm going to take and slide it through on the large end so that the nut will kind of fit in there. And then chuck the whole thing up in my drill. So here's my final shape. I'm not going to do any finish sanding or staining right now. I'm going to try to figure out how I'm going to mount my mandrel. And I believe that because this hole is 5/8 of an inch deep, if I come 1/2 inch here and drill a hole and mark my mandrel, I can pin it in place using that method. I just got to figure out how far I want my mandrel to stick out past that pin. I think what I'm going to do is go like 1/8 of an inch past my drill bit, or try to, and go that route, see how that does. So I took a piece of coat hanger and stuck it through the holes, kind of to pin it in place, just kind of temporary. And like I said, I couldn't find anything more high-tech than that, but I think I'm going to go ahead and cut this off and maybe give it a test to see how it's going to do. I got a couple of wonky 410 shotgun shells, and I'm going to take and cut the crimp off these, and I'm going to use these kind of as my test medium. Well, it kind of works. I'm kind of getting a crimp, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my hole back about 1/8 of an inch to see if maybe it needs to be closer to the bottom. After kind of getting a roll crimp, I took and put some epoxy down in the bottom of this to try to smooth out some of the edges to see if that would help. And I've got a couple more shotgun shells to try. Well, that's a little bit better. It actually looked like it crimped it rather than just melted the plastic on it. So I can deal with that. I've got another shotgun shell, and this one appears to be a little bit thicker, so I'm going to try it and see. Put me a wad in there. Yeah, like I said, it is working a little bit better now. We'll see how they fit into my gun. It's a little tight. But they do work. And I'm going to consider that a success. Now that I've got this working right, I'm going to cut these little nubs off, sand it, and stain it. So there is making a roll crimper for the 410 shotgun shell, and just have to say it that several shotgun shells were injured in the making of this video. Now, I have talked to several people who I consider to be experts in reloading shotgun shells, and they all tell me the same thing, that a roll crimp was actually designed for the paper 12 gauge shells. And I don't even know if they made a 410 paper shell, but anyway, that's why most of the shotgun shells you see today are star crimped rather than roll crimp. And there are some manufacturers who actually roll crimp 410 shotgun shells. And with this roll crimper that I made, I found that those will actually roll crimp better than just a standard shotgun shell, I guess because they're thinner. Now, this roll crimper doesn't produce a factory looking roll crimp per se, but it does work as a roll crimper, because the first couple attempts that I did, it was literally melting the plastic instead of roll crimping it. So I took and kind of slowed things down a little bit, added some epoxy to kind of smooth out the edges inside that cavity, and it does work a little bit better. So making this roll crimper kind of gives you the premise of how the roll crimper actually works. And if you have a lathe and metalworking stuff, that's all great and wonderful, and a lot of people don't, and this is just a cheap way of making a roll crimper if you just absolutely have to have one. So thank y'all for watching. We'll see y'all next time.